when you take the emotion away, you just don't care. Hey, fix this bug. You fix it, like, hope it works. Y'all let me know if it doesn't work. I literally don't care. And that software feels different. You can tell that there's no empathy in the product. But sometimes you use a piece of software, it's like, oh, someone cares about this thing.
That's Kelsey Hightower. This is Crafted, and Kelsey really cares about craftsmanship in everything he does. Kelsey's a legendary developer and storyteller. He regularly speaks in front of tens of thousands and likes to walk on a tightrope without a net. He improvises his live demos like he's playing jazz and speaks with incredible character and humanity.
You'll turn to people, you say, I know, right? You'll let them laugh, you'll pause, you'll tell the good part over again. That's natural.
Kelsey helped evangelize and build Kubernetes, and a year ago he retired at the age of 42, leaving behind his job as a distinguished engineer at Google.
People are surprised that I'm still doing stuff. You still speak at conferences. You still advise startups. It was like, folks, I didn't die.
Kelsey will also tell us why he almost stopped speaking at conferences. He thought they were a waste of time.
But you always forget that there's someone looking through the camera on the other side of that saying, I'm going to be like that guy.
Kelsey loves to level people up, and when I asked him what he wanted to focus on in this conversation, he said he hopes more people will see the power and innovation that happens after, sometimes long after, going from 0 to 1.
Those boring innovations, those are my kind of premium ones, because those are the ones that are harder to do. No one's asking for those things to change very much. And when they do, I appreciate it because that demonstrates very strong engineering.
Plus, Kelsey shares what he's learned in his first year of retirement and what he hopes for, both from new technology and from us.
I just hope that if people are this excited about artificial intelligence, that they just get super hyped about real intelligence. That's the magic that I hope people want to return back to.
Welcome to Crafted, a show about great products and the people who make them. I'm Dan Blumberg. I'm a product and growth leader, and on Crafted, I'm here to bring you stories of founders, makers, and innovators that reveal how they build game-changing products and how you can too. Crafted is brought to you in partnership with Docker, which helps developers build, share, run, and verify applications anywhere without environment confirmation or management. More than 20 million developers worldwide use Docker's suite of development tools, services, and automations to accelerate the delivery of secure applications. Learn more at docker.com. And Crafted is produced by Modern Product Minds, where my team and I can help you take a new product from 0 to 1 and beyond. We specialize in early-stage product discovery, growth, and experimentation. Learn more and sign up for the Crafted newsletter at modernproductminds.com. It's been almost exactly a year since you announced your retirement, so maybe let's just start there. How's it going?
Good. I don't know how to do it. I've often had to tell people I'm retired, not tired.
Mm-hmm.
People are surprised that I'm still doing stuff. You still speak at conferences. You still advise startups. It seems like you're still paying attention to stuff. It's like, folks, I didn't die.
Yeah.
All right. I'm just transitioning from the 9 to 5, the corporate America, but you don't throw away all of this experience, right? You don't just ignore this thing you've been doing for 20 plus years. So that's it. So it's just a pivot. Hopefully I'll get to balance out things a bit more, spend more time with friends and family, but also kind of do things on my terms.
Yeah. In your tweet announcing your retirement, you said, I've spent the last 25 years learning how to work. I hope to spend the rest of my life learning how to live. Is there any one or two things you've learned in the past year?
Oh man, just be patient. There's so many things that, like learning things around the home. I bought a brand new house, but I started changing stuff, right? It's like, hey, I don't like that fireplace. I am not mounting my TV over the fireplace. It's not happening. And someone sent me a thread to this Reddit post or this Reddit thread, TV too high. And you can imagine when you look at this, like, that can't be me. Well, what if I end up on this message board? And so I just kind of refactored the fireplace. So we got the fireplace removed, redid it all with shiplap, reran all the electrical, studied the codes. And so just learning how all these other subsystems work, and also just saying yes to everything. Hey, there's a friend's birthday party. Want to go? I'll be there. All right. And I don't have any good excuses anymore. Like, oh, I have work. I have something to do. No, now I can just say yes.
Yeah, right on. When we chatted to prep for this interview, you suggested we focus on the question of how do the makers mature? Why is that question so top of mind for you right now?
I think so much of the tech is all about new, new, new every year. And half the people waiting on the new stuff don't even know how to use the old stuff. And so everyone's indexed on what they don't have versus mastering what they do have. And I think we all get caught up in that, especially if you're, if you consider yourself a change agent, you consider yourself one on that side of innovation or making things, we tend to overly focus our energy on bringing something new that people have never seen before. When really, if most companies were at the same technology excellence that Google was or Facebook was 10 years ago, just imagine that. Your insurance company with the same type of technology stack that Google had 10 years ago. That would be a phenomenal insurance company. But that's not what we have.
Yeah.
We have insurance companies that are still, it's not just that they're using old technology, their mindset is also stuck in the same era in how they do things. And that's the thing that I think if you're going to mature as a change agent or someone who makes things, your job is to try to even take those companies and move them slowly towards the trend. And that takes a lot more work. You have to understand how the old thing works in order to do the surgery necessary to get that thing integrated. And most people are just not up for the task because that's actually hard.
It's definitely hard. I've consulted to some 200-year-old banks, and so I've definitely seen what you're talking about. And sometimes it's even like, oh, well, competitor X has this feature. We should have this feature. It's like, yeah, they do. They have it today. And the process of shipping new features at that bank might take, a year or more. So like, where are they going? It is definitely not easy. Are there examples that come to mind of companies that you think have done this well?
I mean, this is the top of the line. So for example, Apple gets a lot of slack. People will say things like, oh, Android did it first. Android allows you to do this thing where you can move your icons anywhere you want. Apple's just copying. It's like, I don't think people understand how this works. When you have like 2 billion people who use your devices all the time, every day, these are their kind of go-to daily drivers. They're not looking to switch between Android and Apple every year. What they're doing is they're locking onto your technology train. And so what Apple tends to do is they have the iPhone, the watch, the iPad, the various things that they have. But every year, it's going to get incrementally better every year. And so the thing that's hard to do is come up with something that was like a game changer more than a decade ago, and it still be worth using a decade later, where people are patiently waiting for those announcements. So you might see an announcement, it's like, oh, it's still just Siri, right? You ask it questions, but look what it allows you to do now.
Yeah.
So to me, I admire that because they get a lot of pressure, right? They're judged by all of their industry peers. And then I also give credit to a lot of the people who do infrastructure type work. Think about if you make tires, like a run flat tire is a really cool thing to have, right? Before you drive down the road and your tire blows out and then you're upside down. Now you have these tires that they're flat-ish. They can drive and make it to where you got to go, and we don't think about it. It just works. It integrates with the cars we already have. It works with the roads we already have, but it's an improvement over everything else. So those boring innovations, those are my kind of premium ones because those are the ones that are harder to do. No one's asking for those things to change very much. And when they do, you're not going to get a lot of fanfare, but I appreciate it because that demonstrates very strong engineering.
Yeah, and also just understanding what the problem there is, right? In the case of the tires, to not be stranded. What is it that you see as people progress in their careers? How can they embrace this harder type of innovation that you're talking about?
Let's just think about people at different levels of their career, and we'll just jump on something like Docker, right? Docker is this container technology. It comes out a little over 12 years ago. And this thing comes onto the scene, and if you're a junior person in your career, you have no reference point. All you know is that there is a lot of people really excited about something. Let's say you're still in college, you're 6 months away from graduating, and you're looking at all the news postings about what's going on, what industry are you about to walk into. And so for you, you're like, well, maybe I'll just learn this Docker thing. So everything you know about deploying applications to servers is Docker. Everything you know about the cloud is Docker. And so that's your starting point. And so for you, you might say things like, I want to be a Docker system administrator. I want to be a Docker developer. I might want to work at Docker, or I just want to use Docker. And so that's your world, and nothing's wrong with that. And so if you were to join a company and they ask, what would you bring to the table? You would say something like, I know Docker. And it's like, oh, Docker just came out. That's the new hot and shiny. And you think that will separate you from the rest of the pack, right? So that would be your way of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you've been in the industry for about 5 years, that means you probably already have an approach to solving some of the problems that Docker solves. So you may have experience with other tools, Puppet, Chef, Ansible, DevOps, configuration management tools. So you look at this Docker thing, you'd be like, how's it different than what I'm currently doing? And so you'll be able to at least evaluate whether you need it or not. Now, if you're not a kind of forward thinker or you're kind of married to what you already have, you'll dismiss Docker for a decade. You'll say, it's not production ready. Look at all the features that it's missing. I'll just wait. And I think the majority of our industry is in the I'll just wait category. We'll keep brute forcing this thing. We'll keep this homegrown solution. Yeah. We'll just keep hiring more people. And so that's kind of like your common group of folks. But then you have this kind of person that's been around the loop a few times. When Docker comes out, they'll ask the good questions like, what problems is it trying to solve? And I was like, well, today when you package your apps, it's all over the place. You're using all of these tools. Everyone's building their own Rube Goldberg machine. And so you look at Docker because you already have a mental roadmap. If I had enough time, I would build something that takes this pain away. Right? That's your mental roadmap. Maybe the team has put that as a low priority. Maybe you don't have the skill or the budget to pull it off. So when it shows up, you can see it. You're like, ooh, that's the thing I've been thinking about. And it's finally here. I have an idea on how to integrate it because this thing was on our roadmap. And there's some work that it needs, but it's a good jumping off point. This is going to save us at least a year, maybe 2. And so then those people, they don't go around screaming Docker from the rooftops. Those people are just saying, we're going to keep doing what we're doing, but better. So those things we've promised the business that when the code is ready, we're going to ship it to our customers. Maybe the best you can do is like a day. Some of people are still at a week. Mm-hmm. And then Docker helps you get that down to an hour. What do you walk in the room and say? Do you give all the credit to Docker? Or do you say that your team has finally done it? We've gone from a day to 5 hours down to 30 seconds. Now that progression is like, oh yeah, that's amazing. So that's what you're supposed to do as an engineer. You took this new thing that's new and shiny, but you have the proper perspective to put it right in its place on the roadmap, and then it just gets adopted, and then you show results, not talking about the thing that's like the flavor of the week.
Yeah. I have a couple different quotes from you. You've said a career in tech is less about learning a specific tool as it is the willingness to learn a different tool when the time comes along. I'm wondering if you could expand a little bit more on what you mean by that.
Yeah, I mean, like when we start our careers, you usually apply for a job like Linux system administrator. I know Linux, perfect match. I'll come and I'll do Linux stuff. And then some people end up with 20 years of 1-year experience. Any other skills? No. It's like, well, we kind of use Linux for everything. So we're going to use the Swiss Army knife on every problem I see. And so the truth is, like, look, if you're really good at Linux, you have 80% of the skills you need to manage any other operating system. And so then those people that are willing to, they're willing to step back for a moment, like, we could totally do this with Linux. Here's how much it's going to cost. Here's how efficient that approach is. But I've never used Mac before. Is it better than this? So you got this reference point. Those people that are willing or able to kind of switch when the time comes, because now your company's doing like Mac development and they can actually use a Mac to do these tests. You step back and say, hey, instead of reinventing the wheel or trying to come up with an emulator, let's just use Mac. And then before you know it, you're the Mac person. And it turns out the head start you got from learning Unix on Linux, you can apply those skills to Mac. And it's a game changer.
Yeah.
But some people never go that far. They're just, I don't know Mac. We need to go hire a Mac system administrator because that's not me.
Were there particular moments in your own career where you were ready to make that shift?
No. I used to argue about nonsense. I wish I used Puppet for this. Puppet is the greatest thing. I don't know. We don't use Chef. That one was written in Ruby. No one. Puppet for everything. Puppet can do that. Well, if it can't do it, I can make it do it. And so you're just trying to push everything in this box. And those type of people, me included at the time, they're really hard to work with. Because the team may find a solution that works, and here you are trying to shoehorn it into the solution you have. And that's a challenge. And then when the maturity kicked in, it's like, look, our goal is to build software and get it out on time. How do y'all want to do it? So I haven't always been like that, But I noticed that once I was able to make that mental shift, life got much easier.
Tell me more about the challenge you see when, as you put it to me, people struggle from going from hello world to hello revenue. These are your words, but I'd love to dig in more at this challenge that it's not sexy to work on stuff that's not new. And people often struggle in their career and otherwise to really innovate at that sort of, I think as Scott Belsky calls it, like the messy middle, right?
So hello world comes from the idea that when you're learning software development, you usually start with a simple program, hello world. And if you can get that, then you kind of have the foundation to learn more advanced tasks. So you can go from hello world to building a web server, making a website. So it's a good foundation. And that's how most people start. Hello revenue is different. A lot of people in the software industry think our jobs are the end all be all. Hey, we are the software developers. Mm-hmm. We're the ones that perform this alchemy on the computers to make them do things that no one else can do. And in some ways, you start to think that you're the most important piece of the puzzle. But when you talk about hello revenue, it takes a lot to sell software. There's marketing, there's vision, there's regulatory things you have to adhere to, there's sales, there's support. I mean, there's so many other functions that I think those people don't understand what it means to have software as a business. And this really shows up in like these popular open source projects. Like if you go to GitHub, you'll see all these open source projects, and they're very popular projects. I mean, some of these have millions of users. And then when people go on to start a company around these projects, they find it hard to actually get $1 from any of those companies. And so then those companies go away. And then engineers start scratching their head. It's like, hey, I mean, the software is great. Like we're like number one. Everyone uses the stuff. Why won't they pay? It's like, that's a different game. And that's where you start to do the research. You start to ask yourself, what type of things would people be willing to pay for? Then you build, right? Projects, you just throw something out there, and if they like it, they like it. But this is different, and a lot of people can't make that pivot. So if you can make that pivot to hello revenue, that means you can talk to customers, you can do support, you understand the full life cycle of a product. So after it ships, what needs to happen? That's the set of skills that I think take you to the next level.
Yeah. Another great quote of yours that I found is you've said creating good software is very emotional. And I'm interested to hear more what you mean by that.
Yeah, because I know like when you're a developer and you write code, when you ship it, you're hoping that it works. Like you know a bug is around the corner. Some user is going to do something you haven't anticipated because there's no way you can test every permutation of that app. Mm-hmm. And so you're a bit nervous, right? If you're on call, you might have a little bit of anxiety on this thing, right? No one wants to come in and work in the morning and be like, yo, the whole thing caught fire. No one got any sleep. So if you really care about the things you're building, you're going to have this kind of set of emotions on that first pass. And then a lot of times these things are a reflection of our identities in some ways, right? My craftsmanship, my skill level is reflected in that final product, right? If you ever build something and you step back from it, it's like, yeah, I did that. And I think that's what they mean by it has your name written on it. Because when you take the emotion away, you just don't care. Hey, fix this bug. You fix it, like, hope it works. Y'all let me know if it doesn't work. I literally don't care. And that software feels different. You can tell that there's no empathy in the product. But sometimes you use a piece of software, it's like, oh, someone's used this before. Someone cares about this thing. And I think this is where those concepts around dogfooding come from, where, you know, when you meet a developer that doesn't use the stuff that they work on, it's super interesting because they just don't have any empathy for it. It's like, I don't know. I'm not an accountant.
Right.
I work on QuickBooks, but I'm not an accountant. So I don't know if it's good or bad. So I just ship stuff as sketched out by the UX team, and hopefully the customers like it. I would never know. That's like the equivalent to a race car driver with no, like a mechanic with no driver's license. Like, you work on cars. Yes. Do you know how to drive? No. Don't know how to drive, but I work on cars. It's like, man, I don't know. I kind of like the situation where someone can actually feel the product, use the product, and approach it with empathy versus just something you do from 9 to 5.
Yeah, it's funny. The analogy that comes to my mind actually is before I got into tech, I was in radio. One of the hosts that I used to work with, she was the host of Morning Edition at Chicago Public Radio. She'd be in a studio all alone at 6 a.m. And she literally had taped in front of her on the wall a smiley face, like an emoji smiley, just to remind herself she was talking to someone, and just to smile and like, and what I think you're saying is like that emotion of like, it gets into the keyboard, it gets into the code, it gets into the actual user experience if the developer, him or herself, is emotionally invested.
I mean, who are you building this for? I mean, the first time I learned how to cook, and I got to cook for like Thanksgiving, where you make one of the dishes that everyone's like, hey, you got the macaroni and cheese this year. Lots of people are looking forward to the macaroni and cheese. Some people, that's all they eat. And so if you mess that up, but when you do a good job, everyone's smiling at you. Who made the macaroni? You're just like, oh, me.
Yeah.
Or good job on this. So I think it's just one of these things where you know that who you're cooking for, right? We make food with love, and people can tell when you did that. Now, some people just might say, look, I'm just going to microwave some macaroni and cheese in one of those cups. You just add water, you mix it up. Maybe you make 50 cups for Thanksgiving. Yeah. What is this? I don't. This is not good. Someone took a shortcut here. You didn't do this with empathy.
You're very famous for your live demos, and I would love to understand, what is it about the demo? I imagine it's some of this emotion we're talking about that's so powerful. And also, what are some things that people can do to improve their own demo skills?
So we work in the tech industry. I mean, there's products coming from everywhere, right? There's new phones, there's new software to help you do your taxes, there's microphones, there's editing software. There's just so much. It's impossible for anyone to discover half of this stuff, let alone use it. And it's especially hard when you're making developer tools. Developer tools, for those that are not in the software game, it's like going to Home Depot. There's like 6 different hammers. They all appear to do the same thing.
Yeah.
It's a hammer. Can't be that interesting. But some of them just pick the right color scheme. But imagine going to Home Depot and you're walking by to pick up a hammer, and one of the vendors has a video playing. Our hammer always pulls out the nails you did wrong. Look at the diamond laser cut nail extractor tool we have on the back. It's like, oh, nail extractor. I don't think these others have nail extraction technology. And like the other people who make hammers, like, there's no such thing as nail extraction technology. It's a wedge. You put the thing. We have that too. It's like, no. I'm looking for nail extraction technology. And so when you see it in action, you're watching a little demo, and they always have the hard rock music video dun, 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 in the background. It's like, man, look how I was getting those nails. I want to look like that when I pull nails out in front of everybody else on the construction site. So I got to show up with the right thing. And you show up and everyone's got the same hammer hanging from the belt. You know you bought the right one. So when it comes to the live demo, unfortunately, when a lot of people do public speaking, they public speak like a robot. They take all the human elements out of it, the way we talk to our friends and family, the eye contact, the body language, reading the room, they throw all that away. What they do is say, I'm going to pre-calculate every emotion from the audience into some speaker notes and bullet points. And so what they end up doing is essentially copying the website. Here is our product. As you can see on the slide, you're just like, oh my God, if you don't stop reading the slide to me, so everyone just zones out. The thing is, when you use a new tool for the first time, like in the software space, like let's say you're working on a text editor, writing software is already hard. But the first time you use a feature like autocomplete, where you just, open a file, it's like OS dot, and then it's like open file, and it guesses the file name based on the directory you're in. And you see that for the first time, it's like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Yeah.
You know how much typing I can save if I can just hit dot and tab and it just auto-completes? It's like magic. So the first time you experience this, you feel a certain set of emotions. And so what I tend to do is, as I'm building out a demo, and I feel this way because first thing you got to do is learn how to use it yourself. And then maybe you've been using it for a while, but then you tend to forget on how valuable it was, and you can get too far away from those original emotions. But for me, I go back and remind myself. And when I get that emotion, I just record it and say, I need to get people there. And what you'll notice is that you have to back up. You can't just get to the thing you do because it doesn't make any sense. There's no context. You need the bookends. And so what I'll do is I just build it up. I was like, hey, you ever try to manage a server and you run the automation tool and the server gets deleted and then you got to start over? And people are like, yeah. But what happens when you have 1,000 servers? You got to do all these things. It's like, yeah, Kelsey, I know that experience. And I hate it a lot. It's like, great. So now we have shared context. And then I give them the moment I had. When I got the demo working and I'm using a new tool like Kubernetes where I give it 100 machines and I just start deleting them and things just start coming back automatically. And I'm like, oh my God, this Kubernetes thing is dope. And I say, oh, that's the demo. And so then I put the story about what we're all currently doing. So there's this build up. Where's he going? And I say, hey, look at these same 100 machines. I'm not going to do anything to them. I'm just going to run a bunch of apps. You notice that Kubernetes is picking where they run? And people are like, how's it doing that? What happens if he deletes one of them? It's going to look exactly like my current problem. And I delete one of them. And they're like, did it just come back by itself? While they're sitting there, they get the same aha moment that I had. And that's where my live demos come from. I'm just trying to transfer the emotions that I got all by myself. And in some cases, try to give it to an audience of like 20,000 people. And when they all get it, you can just see the click, the light bulbs go off. Right? And you know that those people will never be the same again after seeing that.
Yeah. I love your focus on, no matter what you're doing, it sounds like you're focused on storytelling in one way or another. And I'm curious, where did you learn this love of telling stories and this way to do it so well?
I mean, that's all we were born to do. You're naturally born this way. It's just that corporate America extracts it from you. It just tells you that's not professional. Use a slightly different vocabulary. Walk this way, dress this way, talk this way. And so everyone starts doing it the same way. Then it becomes incredibly boring and stale. But in real life, no one does that. In real life, we all do what's natural. You'll use the whole room, use your body language, you'll turn to people, you say, I know, right? You'll let them laugh, you'll pause, you'll tell the good part over again. That's natural. And so what I've learned to do is just do that. And I drop the speaker notes. I get rid of the slides. Most of the time, most of the imaging is going to really help me. And I played the demo like live jazz. Some people try to script the demo perfectly. You've seen those kind of demos where they run every command in sequence. And then when something goes wrong, fish out of water. Oh, the demo wasn't supposed to do that. And the whole audience is like, okay, keep going. It's like, I can't. I've only did this where everything works. Now that things aren't working, I guess I'm done. I do mine more like jazz. I'm playing. If something goes wrong, then you slide over and you do something different. You improvise.
Yep.
And then you get back on track, or you just know it's going to fail. So that's kind of been my approach to it. Just be as natural as possible. Do what you do in front of friends and family. And if you can find the courage, because there's a lot of vulnerability in that, you're going to have to be you. And a lot of people don't want people to see who they are. So they hide behind the slide decks and the speaker notes and the way you're supposed to speak versus the way they actually are.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about vulnerability. How did you get to be so confident on stage? Does this come naturally or did this come over time?
When I was first speaking, I think I was doing what everyone else is doing. Get your slides, have your speaking points, have everything tight, even do a rehearsal and dry run. But I remember there was a couple of times where I was like, you know what, I don't have time to produce slides. So if I can't do slides, then what I got to do? Well, you're going to have to show them something. Well, how about you show them the thing you're actually talking about? So, oh, yeah, I could do a live demo, but that takes a lot of work to prepare. It's like, yeah, but don't make something that's too pie in the sky. Give them something real. And so you go up there and you walk on stage and you just look at people for a moment. It's like, have you ever written software that just didn't work? And everyone's looking like, yeah. I was like, me too. And I just did that recently. I wrote some software that didn't work. So I'm going to show it to you really quickly. So here's a little software I was working on. And I'm going to run it, and it didn't work. And everyone was like, this sounds surprisingly natural. And you're looking at them, and they're all like putting their phones down like, where's this going? And he's like, now, I had to ship this before I came here. So I had to fix it. I didn't have a lot of time. And look, I've been ignoring debuggers like my whole career. My debugging has been putting print statements, going to the shell, looking at everything. But look, it's been taking too long. I decided to use the debugger. Did you know these IDEs have a debugger? And look, some of you all, this is just normal. But a lot of you are probably just like me. So here's how you use a debugger. Or at least here's how I use a debugger. I'm not saying I'm the expert at debuggers. But here's how someone went from print statements to using a debugger. Here's what I like. Here's what I don't like. In the future, I can see myself doing a bit of both. And then people are like, yo, I really enjoyed that talk. I use it to debug all the time, but I never thought about why. Or someone in the audience was like, man, I've been using print statements for 20 years. And after seeing this, I think I'm going to try that debugger thing out for a spin. And so once I'm getting this kind of feedback where people are like, my favorite part was when you did this thing. And I also noticed that there was room for jokes because we're all doing this work. And it's like when something's funny, I just laughed on stage. I was like, why do we check in the print statements? Have you ever checked in one of the print statements? And people were like, oh yeah, I remember doing that. Where you put all these print statements for local debugging and you're supposed to take them out before you check in your code, but you don't. And so when you get a code review, it's like, hey, Kelsey, what's this print statement? It's like, oh yeah, don't worry about that. And so that's natural. And so then once I got that feedback loop, I was like, you know what? This is what I'm going to do by default. And I'd rather people hate the talk than to just not remember it. And so I just decided that's just the way I'm going to do it going forward.
That's a similar thing with products, right? You'd rather people either love or hate your product, but God forbid they just, it's nothing. It's meh. Is there a favorite moment on stage or joke on stage that comes to mind?
Oh, yes, 100%. So when I was at GCP, and the big cloud providers, actually all the big companies, when they do their keynotes, this is serious business. These things cost tens of millions of dollars to do these events. They got the cameras, the lights, the set design. This ain't no meetup. And so typically they want everything perfect. Pretty much all the stuff that I said that I don't like to do, that's what they want to do. They even have speech coaches. They have people that write stuff for you. There's even table reads where everyone gets in, like, do your part, and you really have to sit there for the whole time. And there's a chance that your whole section may get cut if the whole thing's too long. And so they were like, hey, Kelsey, you want to give a keynote during GCP? I'm like, yes, but I don't want no input from nobody. I don't want no table reads, nothing. And they're like, yeah, but you got it's a team effort. It's like, it is a team effort. And I promised to do my part, but y'all got to give me a little leeway because I just want it to be what I've grown to be able to do. And luckily at the time, the CEO of Google Cloud was Diane Green, one of the co-founders of VMware, legendary technologist. And she was like, you know what, Kelsey, you can kind of have that free reign. And I remember going to one of the rehearsals, and everyone's got their slide deck perfect. They got the talking points, the teleprompters in there. And they were like, Kelsey, no slides? Like, no slides, no script, nothing to put in the teleprompter. And so they just put ad lib. And so I get to the dry run, they're like, can we kind of get a preview? What are you going to do? I was like, no. I just know that there's a demo that works. I think I know the arc I want people to take. And see you tomorrow. And you could just see the executive team at Google like, oh my God, what is he doing? 13 minutes of live demo? Oh my God. Is it recorded? It's not even recorded. Oh my God. If the internet doesn't work, this thing is over. Like, yeah, it's over. Yeah. And so I'm doing this live demo. I'm going to build an app from scratch. We're going to start with the database. Let's get the database schema. Database is working. So now I'm just trying to show people the big picture of the cloud and how far we've come. And so I'm just deploying pieces and deploying pieces. And I had this joke, and I added it in this morning. I saw a buddy of mine. I was like, hey, man, I need you to help me with something. I want to talk about the reality that a lot of developers, we pull stuff from Stack Overflow. We don't have all this stuff in our head. He's like, what do you need me to do? I said, look, just post this answer to Stack Overflow, and I'll use it in my talk. And so I was going to write some code for this piece of the talk. And I decided to say, you know what? I'm going to be honest with you all. I don't have time to write all code from scratch. So I'm just going to go get it from where all the great developers go. And I start typing in my browser Stack Overflow, and the audience starts laughing.
Now, you got to write some code. Now, this is what we do. You do this. If you haven't heard of Stack Overflow, like, this is high-quality code that you can find on this thing, man. Trust me.
I was like, now, this is what we all do. Stop pretending. And so I'm trying to copy the code from Stack Overflow, but it's a brand new Chromebook that they had set up as a demo laptop. So my key bindings aren't right. Things aren't the way I want it to be. And then there's all these pop-ups because it's a new browser asking me if I want to turn on notifications. I'm like, I'm on stage dying. I was like, Kelsey, you're like not even halfway.
Let's see what we're going to do here. So let's grab this code. Come on, I don't care about cookies. Where's my copy and paste?
If you stop here, it's going to be embarrassing as hell. And they told you not to do this. All of them told you not to do this. And I'm sitting there and it feels like an eternity on that stage.
Like, why are they trying to sell me stuff? I'm trying to get my job done. Oh, come on. Like, the hardest part of this, all right, look at this, ads.
Because you need to stop on time. You can't go too far over. And I remember eventually I got my cursor right in the box where I can start to highlight. And my goal was to get the code from Stack Overflow and put it in my IDE. And it just came to me. Good developers copy. And I went to my IDE and I said, great developers paste. And it pasted.
All right, copy. So one thing is, good programmers copy. Great programmers paste.
And I ran it. And I was like, ooh, what a save.
All right, so we got our code. Now, the next thing we need to do is set up a database.
And then the rest of the demo went by sweet. And then I kept building it. And then I showed off Dialogflow where you can like do the whole OK Google thing and talk to the app we just built. And at the end, as the Google Assistant was talking back to me, I was like, all right, thank you. And it said, I got to admit, that was extra dope. And it came through the house speakers. And it was just like this big applause.
Thank you.
Okay, I gotta admit, that was pretty dope.
And Diane Green, CEO Google Cloud, is watching this play out like masterful. And as I'm getting my microphone taken off backstage, she goes to the back. She was like, oh my God, Kelsey, that was extra dope. And I was sitting there in my mind saying, like, we were about 4 minutes from it not being. But that was like one of my greatest saves live on stage because there was no fallback plan.
Yeah, on the high wire without a net. Another one of the quotes that I love that I read from you, you said, and I think this story is an example of it, a lot of people don't realize how much power they have until way later in life. I'd love if you could explain what you mean by that.
I mean, it's the simple things too. When you're going to the airport, you're kind of rushing. There's a dude that's probably been at work for 7 hours and 30 minutes. He's ready to go. And nobody sees him, right? It's just a guy there, probably has to sweep the sidewalk or something. And so you just walk by like everyone else. And this person might feel invisible. Think about it. And so one day you stop and you just smile. Hey, how you doing? And they look at you like, you talking to me? Like, yeah, how you doing? And you might even have a conversation like, yeah, I'm doing pretty good. I said, man, I love the way they were designing the airport. So much better. It's like, yeah, I've been working here for 7 years. And the one thing we used to complain about was this thing, and they're fixing it now. I was like, oh, they're fixing that. So now you can actually cross between the two corridors? Oh, yeah. Oh, they also got a new Chick-fil-A over there. Oh, they got Chick-fil-A in there? Oh, I'm going to make sure I ate it. It's like, I appreciate that. The smile they have from being seen. And they got a family and they got a kid. And maybe the kid has been feeling like dad ain't see them too. And then dad's like, man, someone saw me today. They may go knock on the kid's room and be like, hey, how you doing? And they do it with patience and really explore the answer and repeat what you just did. Who knows what that spawns into? You don't have to be Superman. You don't need a cape. You don't have to win an election. You can literally choose to be that way everywhere you go. I'm not saying unrealistically you're going to do this all the time, but I'm saying that you hold that kind of power. So that's what I mean by just this ultimate power we have. Now you can scale it up because I didn't realize how much power my voice had doing those keynotes. But I was at a conference in London, and this guy was like, hey, Kelsey. And he was whispering. I was like, why are you whispering, man? We're at a conference. You gotta talk as loud as you want. I have to whisper. He's like, no. I was in jail watching you do this Kubernetes thing. In jail. And when you're in jail, you have lots of time. So I'm studying Linux and all of these things, and I just want to be able to do what you're doing because I had all the time on my hands. So I come out of jail, and in tech, a lot of these companies aren't doing deep background checks. If you have the skills, you're going to get a shot. And he's working for the startups. I say, hey, show me what you built. And he opens the laptop, and he gives me like a little mini demo, and I'm blown away. I'm like, I'm not lying. You're actually really good. This is really good. And I saw his CEO walk by, and it was like, I was like, this guy is good. This product is good. He's like, I know. we're so lucky we found him. Ever since we added him to the team, it's been a big boost to the bottom line, the product. That's where we're at KubeCon today. And I'm thinking to myself, I was like, man, there was a point in time where I thought the keynotes and the talks were a waste of time. But you always forget that there's someone looking through the camera on the other side of that saying, I'm going to be like that guy. And so that to me is extremely powerful to be able to have that impact on people.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about what it means to be a Black man in tech and be on stage and how that representation matters.
I mean, that question, that's what came up in London. Because my background is hands-on technologist. You can see my source code on GitHub. I always wanted to be that first. I didn't want anyone to be giving me a prize just for being my skin tone. I didn't want anyone to kind of guilt themselves into an opportunity. I wanted to earn it, just like everybody else. And so you're on stage and you work real hard to have that be your persona. That's the thing. So we're coming off those stages, you find yourself in those kind of, call them the hallway track, you're in those circles and you're just kind of talking about, what's the future of Kubernetes? Should you do it this way or that way? And this one gentleman comes in and he asks that exact question. What is it like being the only Black person in the room? How do you navigate this? Because it can feel weird. No matter what your color is, if you find yourself in an uncomfortable environment, it can feel weird. Like if you don't know how to play basketball and you go to the basketball court for the first time and you're looking at everyone else look like they have superior skills and you're like, man, what am I going to do if someone allows me to play? I don't want to make a fool of myself. It can feel uncomfortable. And so you got to learn how to navigate that. And it's hard to do it when you feel like you're by yourself. When there's like 3 new people there, there's like, hey, we're going to stick together, right? Maybe pass me the ball if you get a chance. But that's not the case. And I think for him, like many others, myself at certain points in my career, you do find yourself in these uncomfortable scenarios. So you ask that question. And then all my industry peers are also in this circle. And they're like, yo, we don't have an answer for that. And so I'm sitting there and I'm kind of stumped a little bit. And I had to just dial it in and just let them know. It was like, you know what? That's still a thing. Luckily for me, people know what my name is. So if I walk in the room, they say, oh, that's Kelsey. No one makes me prove myself time and time again, but I do remember what it's like before they knew my name. And so I kind of explained that to him. And honestly, I probably didn't even give a great answer. But then he said something that was dope. And he said, hey, I never thought I needed a mentor until I saw you doing what you do. And when you knew you were going to come to London, I brought my son with me. And he had his hands on his son's shoulder the whole time. And we were looking at him in his eyes, and I didn't notice his son. And so I said, I just wanted my son to see that not only can we be here, we can lead the way.
Wow.
And that was kind of like that moment of like, woo, representation does matter. And it could be anything. And so I think life is just like that. When we see ourselves do something, it just gives us a lot of courage and gives us the ability to at least try.
Yeah. Talk about the power of open source and how open source opens doors like the kind you're talking about.
I've never seen anything like this in human history. I'm 43 years old. I'm not saying I've seen everything, but most things in life we're kind of taught, especially in at least Western societies. I grew up in the United States. If you create value, you tend to want to hoard it for yourself, package that thing up, and sell it for as long as you can. And you may even sue someone who tries to copy your idea depending on how it comes to market. The thing that's really interesting is that when you show up to some of these communities, the very same people and other people in those communities take the time to teach you all of the things. They show you their code, they explain things to you, they write docs to you, and they give you something more important than just free software. They give you the knowledge to create your own. There's not a lot of industries where there's that opportunity for profit. And then we have all these people that just said they just want to balance the scales. There's this fringe community that's like, we want to be able to build the software too. And software is this humongous multiplier effect where one person can truly produce software that can be used by millions. It's almost like musicians, right? A musician can write a song once and the world can listen to it billions of times. And some of those songs can go on to become the national anthem. And so like when you think about like a true musician, yes, they probably love the money that comes with a hit record. They probably love the fact that they can do these concerts and make all the money on the concert tickets. But most of them just like music. They like to listen to music. They like to make music. And in many ways, they are showing you like their creativity is expressive of that. For a lot of us people in the tech world, especially the software side, we also have an outlet. We can create applications and software, and it could just work only for us. And then we could choose to share it with the rest of the world. And if you like it, you can use it too, and no strings attached. If you want to change it, knock yourself out. So when we say community, I think that's what people mean. It's just hard to do when all the other things get in the way. And so I've been really appreciative of open source community because as someone that didn't go to college, someone who's wanted to be competitive in this industry, meaning be the best that I could be, you can't do that without all of these people willing to share their tips and tricks and show you how they did things so you can get better over time.
Yeah. Back to where we started with from Hello World to Hello Revenue. I'm interested in how what we just talked about with the power of open source and, sharing your knowledge, sharing everything, how that jives with the first conversation we had.
My last year at Google was very interesting. I was there for almost 8 years. And learning to go from Hello World to Hello Revenue really helped because when you become a principal engineer, I ultimately retired a distinguished engineer. At that point, you're an executive. So you do executive briefings and, you have to think about revenue as in terms of your impact. Your impact is no longer expressed in, I wrote this code or I helped this feature get shipped. At some point, it's like, here's the impact to the business. And then revenue plays a big part of that. So once I started getting good at this Hello Revenue thing, I also started to really deeply examine my own career. I was like, what is my actual impact on society? Why do I actually work? Look, a lot of us, we work because we need to pay for things. It's a really simple equation. But one day I said, if I was able to buy my time back, would I do it? Right? So you got to have enough money from here to the end of your time and all the people you want to be able to support. And as for that process, would I buy it back? And then I was faced with this situation where I can go from principal engineer to distinguished engineer. And they have this like mentoring program where each business unit, you can think YouTube or cloud, a select group of people are given an opportunity to do this thing where they kind of get you on the right path. This could be mentorship. It could be a leadership program. And these things take time. And I thought about it. I said, I was so honored to get this because a lot of people don't get this. And I remember sending back a letter to HR and saying, hey, I'm done. I'm done with the ladder. The thing I need next, Google can't give. If you're going to be an employee with responsibility, ultimately, these are going to be success factors you're going to be measured against. And it makes sense. It's a deal. That's what you're signing up for. But where I need to go next, revenue cannot be the dominating predicate to my decision making. And so being able to get to a place where what you'll be remembered by, I promise you, and I yet to even think about all the great legendary people that we study in school, I never really heard anyone really over-index on how much they were worth, how much revenue they generated. We just remember the impact they had on like your lives or the lives of others. And some of those people died broke. Some of them died rich and famous. But either way, we all still just remember their impact. So I kind of figured I want to make sure that I have those type of stories to over-index on because no one's going to really care about all the revenue I generated. That's just secondary.
Yeah. Right on. Is there anything that today sounds like science fiction that you think is going to be totally commonplace in the near future?
You know what? So I think you can't ignore AI. And the interesting thing about AI is like when people look at AI in action, they're just floored by it. Look at this thing. You can talk to it. It doesn't always give straight answers, but look at it. It feels magical. It seems so smart. I asked it to draw a picture and it drew a picture. I asked it to type an email and it typed the email. This is the future and we're going to be in another galaxy because of this moment. And then you're like, damn, did you know humans could do this too? 5-year-olds can do this with like, I don't know, 20 watts of power, a couple bananas, 800 calories. They can do this too. And we also have mental models of the world. You have these lived experiences where you can look and see a shadow and know that there's a cat playing with yarn on the other side. And a lot of these ML models will struggle with that task, but you can do it. But you don't look at other humans and marvel at the future. You don't look at this other person and say, wow, this other person studying cancer cures is the future of cancer. But if I show you this computer with the blinking lights, crunching data, you're inspired to the fifth degree. But looking at your fellow citizen, you're not. So yes, it feels like magic that somehow this thing that is still not capable, does it have a better memory than the average human? Of course. Does it have more computing power than the average human? Collectively, maybe, of course. But it's no match for all the things that a human can do at all. It's not even close to that, right? This is where they would like to be, but in many ways, you already have it. But the moment someone can take this pizza box and make it do something similar to what we do, all of a sudden, everyone's inspired again. I just hope that if people are this excited about artificial intelligence, that they just get super hyped about real intelligence.
Yeah.
And we start to treat everyone else like, what happens if you start fine-tuning your own model? What happens if you go out and get new experiences so that you can be a little bit better at understanding the world, so you too can make better predictions or try new things and show off your creativity, because you can also generate stuff too.
Yeah.
That's the magic that I hope people want to return back to.
Yeah. Kelsey, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
That's Kelsey Hightower. I'm Dan Blumberg, and this is Crafted. Crafted is brought to you in partnership with Docker, which helps developers build, share, run, and verify applications anywhere without environment confirmation or management. More than 20 million developers worldwide use Docker's suite of development tools, services, and automations to accelerate the delivery of secure applications. Learn more at docker.com. Special thanks to Artium, where I launched Crafted. Artium is a next-generation software development consultancy that combines elite human craftsmanship and artificial intelligence. See how Artium can help you build your future at artium.ai. And Crafted is produced by Modern Product Minds, where my team and I can help you take a new product from 0 to 1 and beyond. We specialize in early-stage product discovery, growth, and experimentation. Learn more and sign up for the Crafted newsletter at modernproductminds.com. Please share Crafted with a friend. We have some incredible episodes coming up and some shiny new features, too.
Ooh, nail extractor.